Hello and welcome to our final interview of the day. My name is Nigel and I'm the co-founder of mayamada and organizer of GamePad Online. So we've had a few interviews so far, and if you have missed those, you can check them out later on our YouTube in the coming week. We're going to put the extended interviews of all the people that we've spoken to today for you to check out. So here live with us is our final interviewee, and I'm going to introduce Adam Campbell, who is the Director of Product at Azoomee Vinci. So Adam, welcome.
Hi everyone, great to be here.
Cool. We're going to get into all of Adam's journey, how he got here, the work he does, all that stuff. But I want to remind people that you can let us know your thoughts and questions in the chat, in the live stream chat, and also in our GamePad Discord after the interview as well. And like I said, all the interviews will be up on our YouTube later on. So just to give a bit of background on Adam. So you are, like I said, the Director of Product at Azoomee, which is the world's #1 kids media company, as I understand it. You're also part of the BAFTA committee, co-founder of Pock and Play, which we're going to talk about as well. And I believe Yuki board member. Have I got all your titles down?
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool.
Yeah, so a few different things I'm involved in.
Yeah, I'd hate to see your business card. So like I say, we do these interviews just to sort of open up awareness of the games industry, show the people behind it, the diversity in the roles and the people as well. And I always like to know people's journey, like how you got here. So we can start, at the beginning and with the question, like, did you always want to work in games? Like, was this always part of your plan?
Yeah, good question. Sometimes I say, how long have we got? But if I do start from the top, actually, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a scientist. And I can't necessarily tell you what type of scientist. Love physics,
scientist.
Chemistry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, just like all sorts of sciences. I love science. And, I just loved the way things worked. I was quite intrigued by the world, generally speaking. So I was like, that's going to be my career. But as a kid, things change over time, change your mind. And the thing that actually changed my mind, funnily enough, was a little console called the Dreamcast.
Okay.
So I'd always been a gamer throughout most of my life, but something about the games I was playing on that platform, as well as the upcoming PS2, games were starting to get really realistic. We had like proper sort of acting performances, realistic physics, lots of crazy stuff going on. Yeah.
That did not happen.
Yeah. I mean, not quite
Everything
serious, but yeah. I mean, just the way that games were like coming together in terms of like their expression of worlds, how they mix art, how they mix music, and of course the science element as well. And I started to think to myself, you know what? This is an industry that I really love. I love games, but it's also great to think about how I can express my own interest in science and the way the world works in virtual worlds. And that was actually the start of a journey for me. So I think I must have been 11 when I was like, I've got to work in games. So my aspiration basically built up since then. Okay.
That's cool. So the Dreamcast is responsible for the change from scientist
to... Dreamcast.
That's really cool. And I'm wondering, like, when you had that new vision, and I assume you might have expressed that to family, to parents, whatever. What was the reaction when you went on this path to like, I wanna go and make games, like forget the science stuff? Not that science is cool, but
Yeah, it's always one of the big questions. Like, what do you want to do when you're older? And also, how you sell like your future aspirations to parents who want you to do really well. I think I did raise like the general subject. You know what? I think I'd love to make games one day. Probably kind of like a few sighs, raised eyebrows. It's like, what even does that mean? But me being me, I started to get just like a little bit obsessed with, just trying to find out more about how people made games, like what the processes were, what knowledge was required. And something that constantly came up was the concept of computer science. And then at the moment I realized that you could see computing as a science in and of itself,
Yeah.
that became my real aspiration. And actually, it wasn't so much of a difficult sell. It's like, well, mum, dad, grandma want to be a computer scientist. So it's not like I was really going back on the sort of plan that I sort of set out for myself.
Fair enough. I get that. You concealed it in computer science, and it was really
it's a good trick.
Cool. So I noticed that as you got into games, and basically I was snooping your LinkedIn profile, so I saw a number of roles that involved product and Q&A and testing. So when you did, reach the point at which I'm going to enter this industry, I've noticed that's a typical way in. Is that the case? Is that what you found? Is like the focus on the product and the QA testing is a good way in?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to go back a little bit. So, obviously, I mentioned that I wanted to study computer science.
Yeah.
Which I did at City University of London. At the time, it was one of the sort of early computer science and games technology combined courses. So the good thing about that is my university, as with others, has set up the expectation that they are preparing students for a world in the games industry.
Mm.
Now, I think, there are lots of good and bad feedback points about games courses, but one thing my uni did quite well was try to establish links with industry, and they really pushed people to get work placements. Now, not everyone managed to get them in games, actually relatively few, but because I had this vision I was going to get a work placement after my second year, I started to look at ways I could get into the industry through that methodology. So my actual first role was in community management, which was at Jagex Game Studio. And the good thing about a community management role is that for a person just entering the industry, it was relatively easy for me to get into the sorts of work types that the company did on a regular basis without having, lots of technical skill or, multiple years of experience.
Okay.
Obviously, community management is a role which can grow and develop and become a really super senior professional career if you want it to, but it is one of those fields that did offer sort of an entry level position to get into games. And then my next role, ironically at Sega, seeing as I love the Dreamcast so much, was in QA there. Yeah, exactly. So again, I had some existing experience. QA is another relatively easy role to get into at the entry level. And therefore that for me was like a good opportunity to get my first bits of experience. And I sort of built and developed from there, really.
Okay. And did you find the jump from going from a course from education into the real world of work, were there any particular lessons or skills that you picked up that you found actually did translate from one to the other?
So, that's actually a really good question. I would say one of the first things I realized the moment I stepped into industry is that courses can very quickly be out of date because technology and industry moves really quickly. And nothing can quite prepare you for the experience of being there. So that's the one thing that I learned. That being said, what I was able to do just in my general interest in the industry and technology and games, I was able to apply some of my sort of more technical or theoretical thinking in my day-to-day work as well. So, for example, I took quite an interest into things like technical support. How do we get a game such as RuneScape at Jagex to run on a broad number of computer systems across the world, different connections? I've obviously got to be a person who's talking to the community, but also feeding back to developers. So I was actually able to use some of that technical knowledge I acquired in university and also my own sorts of research into an actual practical role. So there's always some crossover there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, stay in school, kids. Some good stuff there. So you eventually found your way to Azumi. Can you tell us exactly what that the company does, what the platform is, how it all works? Or not all. We don't need all your corporate secrets, but you know.
Sure, that's fine. So I work for Azumi Da Vinci. So we are a global kids entertainment group. So I think we're definitely a leader when it comes to sort of the more educational entertainment sector. Azumi Da Vinci is effectively a combination of Azoomee, which is a London-based digital company, experts in making apps and kids' games and experiences, and Da Vinci Kid, which is Berlin-based, and they've got a legacy of kids' broadcast TV. So Azumi actually acquired Da Vinci towards the end of last year. And as a result, we created this new group, which is growing really fast. And now we reach around 60 million families across the world. And that's covering a range of mobile apps. So both the Azumi and Da Vinci apps targeting different age demographics of kids, as well as our TV apps, TV channels, and lots of other product output as well. So basically, we want to provide like the one place where you can send your kids to find great entertainment, entertainment that's fun, entertainment that's enriching, and also a bit of educational content as well. So we work with lots of content types. Our apps can stream video and game content on the fly. We also have things like chat services and integrations with a kid-friendly, parent-approved interface. And as mentioned, we also share and broadcast our content on multiple platforms through telecoms partners, TV partners, etc. So yeah, we've got kids entertainment all in hand.
Yeah, no, I saw like on your website, like it's you got it all covered, like, and so I mean, I know you got the focus on like the apps and the games, and then like you mentioned the educational side of things. So I guess it's something to offer very young kids who are in this world where they are surrounded by technology. So why do you think it's important to have this like specialized content? Why not just give a kid an iPad and a credit card and say go nuts? Like, what's the thing about the specific kids content?
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend giving kids a card.
It happens. I've heard it.
So when you're young, it's like, well, when I grow up, I'm going to buy all the toys and Toys R Us. But yeah, so you know what? I think we see a lot of like scare stories and horror stories about kids and technology. But let's face it, kids are going to use technology, and if they're going to use technology, you want them to get the very best experience of that technology. So you want it to be safe. You don't want dodgy adverts. You don't want unsuspected microtransactions. You also don't want your kids to be talking to strangers, which is very possible in the world that we live in. But you also want to make a platform that is robust, it's stable. The user experience is designed for kids because, as we know, kids use a lot of more adult-orientated products. And you also have to consider the fact that not everyone's technology is equal. So making sure that our products can work on low-end devices, connections which you might find in more emerging markets, as well as taking advantage of high-end platforms where those are available too. So it's just making entertainment safe, fun, stimulating, and accessible for a very wide demographic of youngsters.
Yeah, and I think you raised a good point about the technology or access to technology. I think that's something we've seen with the pandemic in terms of, sort of everyone's working from home or just like using more of the internet at home. And you see then, particularly with education, you see like, access to a decent computer and internet connection isn't universal. Not everyone has it, and that's why we come to school and things like that. So I think that's a good point. Has the pandemic changed anything about the way you guys operate? Is this I don't want to say like good time, but in terms of that chance to do more of what you do, because we're in that time where young people, here in the UK, there was a point where school was closed and everyone was sent home. So do you see any impact from that?
Yeah, definitely. I think we saw impact on two fronts. So if we talk a bit about the business itself, I have to say that we're really privileged to be a digital first company. Kids and parents, in fact, love games, they love TV, they love digital media, and it almost doesn't matter where you are or what the situation is. It's something that people will always want to consume in some way. But as so many kids have been stuck at home, parents have had to reassemble their duties, and also schools were not necessarily prepared for this eventuality at first. Azumi did definitely plug a gap, both Azumi and Da Vinci. So Azumi being upper preschool to early primary school, and Da Vinci slightly older kids. But we can offer a whole range of entertainment content to keep the kids busy. There's loads of educational content there as well. So that if your kid's going to sit down at, whether it's your iPad or your smart TV, there's going to be great content for them to be occupied during this time. So I think, definitely parents have really appreciated having that, that tool, that platform for them to use. But another impact has also been on the sort of business and the way we work as well. It's also to be remembered that, we have parents, we have carers. So we've definitely had to try and reshuffle the sort of working lifestyles and approaches to working as well internally. We did have a pretty hard lockdown, so to speak, from a company perspective around March, and we've been pretty much remote ever since, with very, very frequent visits to the office for some people. But we've managed to adapt all of our schedules, our processes to making sure that wherever you are, you can work remotely. And actually, it's worked out pretty well.
Okay, that's good to hear. And I know, like you say, all these changes, and I feel that some things will go back to, wherever normal is, but I think some things are like changing just regardless. This has definitely accelerated some things that maybe companies and organizations were thinking about doing, and now they're just like, we're going to, cater for this remote working, things like that. So I definitely see the industry as changing going forward. And just looking at a young person now who would be just about to go into the industry, maybe like you, they've maybe not Dreamcast, but PlayStation 4, Xbox, something, and they've been inspired and they want to go into the industry. Like, what kind of advice would you give someone who's like, I want to go into this, what is now a very changed landscape with the games industry? Like, what would you advise?
So, I mean, the first thing is not to see the games industry as it's not just entertainment, and it's not just games or just playing games. Now, I know it's a bit of a cliche. A lot of people think games industry is about playing games, which it can be. But I think what I want people to do is look at the industry as being a very broad space of lots of different fields. And I think as a kid at school, you tend to find subjects which you might have a more natural affinity towards. Maybe there are other types of jobs you would be interested in doing outside of games. Like, for example, if you're thinking about working in, public sector or in retail or whatever, what interests in those sectors could you potentially transfer over to video games? Okay. So I mentioned I liked, sciencey stuff. I was interested in physics and chemistry. At first I thought maybe programming is sort of, what I want to go into to be able to make some of those things happen. I changed my mind later on, which is absolutely fine. It's always good just to look at the broad range of subjects. Like in games, you can do programming, you can do 2D art, 3D art, animation, legal, HR, business development, metrics analysis. the list is endless. So I think when you start looking at the industry, look at it as this broad range of fields and have a little think about, what areas really excite you. But then also, there's no harm in trying a few different things. You might not know what you want to do ultimately. Sometimes you also think you know what you want to do, and then you change your mind. I went from programming to production, which a lot of people might actually do. So feel free to dip your toes in lots of different things. If you're looking at courses or even training materials online, just feel free to give things a try. You might be really into drawing, but then you might realize, actually, I quite like editing code and 3D models and stuff as well. Or maybe you just like the business side of games, and there are some areas there which you might actually want to get involved in. So yeah.
So as I was saying earlier on, I was snooping around your LinkedIn page. Actually, to be fair, you told me this. You told me when you became director of product, so I did have that knowledge already. But I'm wondering, because when you came into Azoomee, you've kind of made the step up. So what would you say is the difference in your role now as director of product versus what you were doing when you first joined the company?
Yeah, sure. So when I first joined Azoomee, I had actually been working in more kids-focused sort of games and apps for the last few years. But with my role at Azoomee, there was a specific opportunity to go in and really help the company boost their game strategy and their games offering. So, as you've probably seen, Azoomee is a multimedia app with games, TV shows, and other features. But around that time, Azoomee was a little bit more geared towards the video side of things. But obviously, games, number one entertainment industry in the world. As a games professional, I came in specifically to focus on how we can change Azoomee's sort of direction in that sense. So my role was very much focused on the games product, acquiring and producing new content, as well as helping the developers to improve the platform as the perfect place for kids to come and play games. So just because of changes in business requirements, also wanting to leverage more of the skills I have possessed across the course of my career, I became the sort of more general product manager, then later head of product. So I then basically took my experience with running processes, evaluating business opportunities, and evolving products, and I basically put that through the entire series of products which we produced. And then following our acquisition of Vinci, we more than doubled in size in terms of our group. So now as director of products, as well as being an overseer of the output of our product and development teams, I manage the company's strategy around product development, and also how other product managers and project managers do so as well within the business.
Cool. So just more responsibility and more people under your your guidance.
Yeah.
Now, for our last round of GamePad Online events, I spoke to Des Gale, and I think the first thing I said to Des is he does a lot of stuff. And I'm going to say the same thing. You do a lot of things because outside of Azoomee, you are also the co-founder with Des and others of PLC in Play. So I'm going to let you talk about what it is. So could you tell us, some people watching this may have already heard of you, but can you tell us what you do and more specifically what caused you to go out and start your own organization?
Sure. It's always a subject I love talking about because it's really, really close to my heart. So yeah, POC and Play, sometimes also styled as POC. We are a representation and inclusion organization for people of color in the video games industry. We are actually Europe's largest organisation of its type, which, to be honest, is actually quite a meteoric rise for something which has only been around for just under 2 years.
And
so yeah,
in a way that's quite telling in some way, maybe.
It is, yeah. And I think, so, I mean, I guess this touches on some of the reasons why we built the organisation. So, I mean, I'm a black man myself.
I did notice that when you
you did. Yeah, definitely born in the country. Been through schooling in this country, family, working class background, and you know what, we've had to kind of like work hard to try and get where we are in our lives, and because of that, I do have particular experiences of myself. Some of them are positive, some of them are cultural, some of them are a bit more negative as well. But what's really interesting is that it took me a while of being in the industry to actually realize how race and how other attributes of marginalized people in the industry can actually affect the way they're represented, the way they're included, or even the access they get into the industry at all. And when you see the statistics, or you even just look around sometimes, you realize that this place doesn't feel like a place for everyone. And it's usually as a result of a number of systemic issues that, that go back a very long time. And it's not necessarily intentional. Like, yes, there are some gatekeepers, but as with systems, there are very complex reasons as to why we are where we are. So I wanted to make sure that we had an organization that could open up the games industry, make it a place where it doesn't matter, what your ethnicity or race is, and all the other intersections, such as your class, so sexuality, gender, etc., wouldn't be a barrier to you getting into industry. And then once you go there, there's a support group, and there are people that are there to to represent you. So yeah, I mean, we launched the organization in February 2019. Myself and co-founder Shella Ramalan, and we also brought together a wonderful team of experts. So we're all volunteers. We've got different expertise in terms of our fields, but we also have a very diverse cultural background. You already mentioned Des Gale, who's an amazing member of the team. We also have Mike Anderson, Nida Ahmad, Dr. Satish Shiharak, Jodie Azar, Sitara Schefter, Mu Yu, and Jade Lim Taraskal. So maybe some of your viewers have heard of these names before. If not, you might get to know them soon. But we all share a really strong passion for the industry that we know and love. And we also hope that our varied backgrounds could be of great benefit in all of the initiatives that we actually work on.
Mm. And you mentioned like the rise, so you started in 2019. And what have you seen change since that time that you started, whether it's, as a direct result of one of your organization's actions or just in industry as a whole?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good question. Like, what has changed?
Mm.
And a year or 2 years can actually be a long time in like the games or tech industry. So a lot has changed. Now, that's not to say that we've seen like seismic shifts in the industry.
Yeah.
But one thing that's happened for sure is that the conversation is happening, and happening in a way that perhaps we've never seen it happen before.
Yeah.
If you can go on social media or onto a games website or even mainstream press these days and not see topics around, representation or inclusion or diversity in games, it's quite surprising. So like, there's always a conversation going, and I know that is much to the displeasure of some people. They just perhaps don't want to think about it.
I noticed that.
Yeah, but the fact is happening, and the fact that more companies are now backing the fact that change needs to happen, whether it's big companies or small companies, I think that's what's really changing. And I know, we've had movements which have, re-emerged, such as Black Lives Matter. Not that they ever went away, but that started to really ignite people in circles from across the globe. And it also forced the games industry to look at the community that plays their games and the community that makes their games. How do these real world global issues also affect the people that that we serve? So I definitely think that the sort of media attention, the communication, the conversations are far stronger than they were before. But as with anything, we've got to try and keep that momentum. So we do tend to find that some organizations get very excited about diversity, and then perhaps the following week they're not quite so vocal.
Starts being a trending topic.
Yeah, that Black Lives Matter on Monday, by Friday, perhaps not so much. But organizations like POC and Play, we are here not just to work with the community, but also to hold those who do have power a bit more accountable.
No, I like what you guys are doing, and I am also a black man. You might have noticed that when we started the call, also, and I think, like, for me, the value I've seen it in the work you're doing has come from my perspective that I've got from working with young people, and just seeing how the lack of representation impacts them, and so I can't even say it's necessarily something that, because I've not, other than GamePad, I've not worked in the games industry, and I still in some ways feel like an outsider sometimes, but
you're included too.
Okay, cool. All right, Adam's giving me the thumbs up. I'm in. So I've not necessarily considered it for myself. It's just when I see like the impact, that was when I was really like, oh wow, young people are either making decisions or not even aware, and that's the one that like really surprised you. Just, you have no idea. Like I'll talk to them about aspects of the industry, they just don't know. They just don't know at all. So I think it is needed to just raise that awareness of how the games are made, who's making them, and for future generations, like, oh, okay, this is a thing that we can do as well, and get everyone included. So that's really cool. And from when you started, see, 2019, 2020 was a year. That was to say the least. So like looking forward to 2021, like what do you want to see happen in 2021 other than just a return to normal life? But in the games industry.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very good. It's very interesting word, normal.
I know.
Yeah, it's like, do we return to normal? Do we return to the new normal? I'd like to think. 2020 was a very difficult year. There's no doubt about that. Like we could say that every day, but I think it also has shown people's resilience, their hearts, their activism, and I think people who perhaps were not engaged with causes that were important to other communities, they've started to really think, you know what, we are all in the same world. We do have shared struggles, not all the same. We have our specific community issues, racial issues, etc. But I think it's really fired up people's passion and aspiration to do something, to make change. So I spoke before about momentum, and 2021 is all about building on those foundations and pushing forward momentum. Like, the train shouldn't just like stop; it should keep going to the next destination. So all of the initiatives that we've worked on through 2019 and 2020, we built those initiatives with the idea that they start off small, they do small important work, but they're built to scale. So through 2021, we're going to scale those initiatives. We will hopefully do more face-to-face in-studio events. Hopefully, make more impact in schools and educational establishments. But as part of the new normal, we're not going to turn our back on the power of digital. The more online and digital-based forms of activism and representation and inclusion that we can do as well. So yeah.
Cool. Momentum and scale. I need some of that too. We might need to talk. Tell me how you do that. So on a different topic now. So I know because we've met before, and I know you're kind of similar to me. You're quite diplomatic. So I'm going to get into something now. Next gen consoles or current gen consoles, PlayStation or Xbox?
Yes.
I tried.
Just playing. I mean, I've got to say, I absolutely love both brands. I mean, I think just having those two brands in the industry, along with Nintendo, has, I think it's like pushed us. Like, I think we're 10 years ahead of where we would have been if there wasn't that competition. So it's amazing. I'll admit that I do have a PS5. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Sony exclusives. New controller's also quite nice.
I do not have a PS5, but if anyone from Sony is watching and would like to send me one. But anyway, you were saying.
But to be fair, I will definitely be hopping on Game Pass when I can. Got to take benefits of all the platforms.
See, I told you, diplomatic, but no, I agree with what you said. I think the two companies and the different approaches alongside Nintendo. And I was saying on our podcast, I believe I said this on our podcast, that this might be like the first generation where everyone can quote unquote win with different strategies. So it's going to be an interesting few years, however long this new generation takes.
Definitely.
But is there anything in particular you're looking forward to in terms of like the consoles, whether it's a game or you mentioned like the controller, any particular like technical aspect of it?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned about, kind of like everyone winning and sort of different sort of strategies and approaches. And I think it's actually really good. It's a really good point to hone in on. So with Sony, I love how, so when we talk about, the true next generation, like really pushing technology, I think what they've done with sort of their, with their design, with their controller and the advanced haptics, just some of the things that Sony are focusing on, I think really does push the medium forward in new ways. I know everyone's talking about DualSense controller, but it really is one of those things. Is this feeling is believing type features, which is great. So I feel like Sony are really kind of like pushing our understanding of next generation. But then with Microsoft, I think one of the biggest things they're bringing into this generation is more accessibility. So including the great stuff they do in terms of accessible controller interfaces, but having a next gen console which costs the same as a last gen console, I mean, that's quite a surprise with the Series S. But I think it's a great way to offer a scaled experience for people who don't have, $500 plus dollars or pounds or whatever to spend on a console, and other streaming and Game Pass options as well, does actually make gaming a lot more affordable for a number of people. So whilst I like what Sony's doing in terms of, sort of their next gen pushing the sort of, tech approach from a, interaction perspective, etc. I like what Microsoft's doing in terms of building a wider ecosystem that more people can jump into. But I think I might have actually used a Microsoft tagline, "Jump in." So I promise.
Yeah, I think
I'm not employed by this.
They got to you. I don't know. That was some Inception stuff that just came out.
But I mean, I do think the two approaches they are very different, but I think it does build a generation where I think more people will be able to access games, which to me I think is definitely one of the biggest goals that we should have in the industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's what it is all about. We want more people playing games and different types of games and different ways to access them, so more people can win. So I like and accept that diplomatic answer Cool.
Perfect.
So to round things up, let people know, where can we find you? Your website, social media, let us know.
Yeah, sure. I'm pretty much all over the place. Like a lot of games people, I'm on Twitter at AC_revolution. I post an awful lot about, diversity, inclusion, game stuff, maybe the odd teddy bear here and there, but it's Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, so my sort of extension is /JustAC. I'm usually quite searchable on LinkedIn, so that's fine. If you want to drop me an email, adam@azoomee.com, or contact@pogplay.org for more racial activism related stuff. And obviously you can also go to the Pog and Play website, which is pogplay.org.
Cool. Got all that in there. Nice. I'm gonna put all that in the show notes in the video description, so people can basically just find you wherever you are online. So yeah, Adam, thank you for joining me. It's been great to hear about your journey and the work you're doing now, and what you hope to see in the future of video games.
Great, thanks a lot. It's a pleasure.
No problem. And for everyone watching, this is one of many interviews that we do as part of GamePad and GamePad Online. So you can follow us on YouTube, jump in our Discord to continue the conversation, and stay tuned for more from GamePad. You can also hear more of my voice on our podcast, Story X Story, where we talk about stories across pop culture, including video games, through interviews or deep dive into different stories. So I co-host that with Tazzy. So you can go to mayamada.com/StoryXStory. Our email address for GamePad is gamepad@mayamada.com. And please stick around, stay tuned to see what we have coming up next. So until then, stay safe. And if anyone from Sony or Microsoft is listening, I am sans Nextgen console. Just saying. But take care, everyone. Bye. Hey there, I'm Nigel from mayamada. Thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other great videos we have on the channel. You can also join the GamePad Discord and check out the next event at gamepad.events. We'll see you soon.